Welcome back to the Authentic Human podcast. I am really excited today. My guest is MaryBeth Highland, and she is from Spark Vision. And before we go any further, I just want to let you guys know that if you're listening um, and you have any triggers around mental, emotional, or physical abuse, you may want to set aside a different time to listen to this episode. And if you have no issues or you want to learn more, now's your perfect time. And for those who prefer visual option, you can watch on our YouTube channel. It's YouTube/Michelle Vickers. So, Mary Beth, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Likewise, I am so happy to be with you and to have this important conversation today.
Yay. So I met Mary Beth quite a number of years ago now. I guess 6 or 7, maybe even 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a while. And we did a little bit of work together. And then we were off doing our own things and, spreading our awesomeness out into the world. And we've come back and I am super grateful. So basically, what I did was I put a call out to ask superhumans, humans who are on their journey, who have, they've gotten some awareness and they're taking that awareness and they're applying it to their life and they're doing incredible things. And I'm also asking those same humans, what do you need to know to help you get to that next level, to help you, have more awareness of whatever it is. So this is basically the call I put out. And Mary Beth 100% was right there. She answered the call. So I am going to turn it over to you, Mary Beth, and let you share a little bit about your story right now and where you're at and what you're feeling so that everyone can sort of come up to speed and then we can take it away and ask some questions from there.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, as someone who's worked with you in the past, this is why I'm like so excited for this conversation today, because I trust there's going to be some really powerful and transformative moments for me and hopefully everyone who's listening to receive those as well.
Thank you.
So a little bit about me. I grew up in the city in Washington D.C. and started off in going to international school. My first language was Spanish. I had like a very different city life than a lot of people that I wound up knowing because we abruptly moved to the county. And it was like the complete opposite of my experience in the city. And the one thing though that was consistent in the earlier years was that my father is a very, he's passed, but he was a very traumatized person who experienced a lot of abuse himself. And in those earliest years that I was just describing, like everything seemed really beautiful from outside looking in, but there was a lot of secrets going on, a lot of physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse. It's actually my earliest memories or are of my father being really aggressively physical and extremely damaging in the belief system that he created about what it meant for me to be lovable and to be worthy and to be somebody that was even a good use of his energy to invest in or to be present with. And that really usually was requiring me to do a lot of work. So my dad, in addition to being a brilliant engineer, he also had a construction company and apartment building. The building I originally grew up in, he turned into a series of apartments. And so from the time I knew how to hold a hammer, I was the one helping him and the one working with him and the one who he could rely on because I was really good at being told what to do and then doing it effectively. And in fact, like doing it more than effectively. And one of the reasons for that was because if I didn't do it that way, I knew I was going to get hurt, whether that was physically or being berated in words. And I just learned how to avoid that by working really hard and doing everything he said and not talking back and just figuring it out. And as time evolved and I grew older, I learned more and more about how to tune in to his energy and to notice when it was like about to be an explosion. And I learned how to get ahead of that. I learned how to morph myself so that maybe I could make him laugh in a time when he was about to scream. Maybe I could do something that could shift the energy between us. And as a result of that, I was really fortunate in that I learned how to navigate an extremely toxic environment. The hardest part was that my dad told me that if I ever said anything to anyone, he was and my mom would get a divorce and it would be my fault. So it was very intentional, the way that he was very strategic about this. And while he's not alive anymore, I'm sure in his mind, if someone were to ask him about him, he was doing what he thought was the best thing to do, because likely those are some of the phrases and things that were passed down to him in his own experience growing up. And it was the type of thing that as I grew older, when I finally got to college, that was actually the first time that it came out. That was the first time I said out loud that my father is abusing me to my mom, because I was so afraid that I was going to be the reason for them to be divorced. But it just was not, there was not a time where at that point I couldn't see any reason for them to stay married. Like it wasn't a threat anymore. It was like, please do that.
Right.
I hope that happens. And it really all happened because my mom witnessed my dad being extraordinarily abusive to me for the first time in front of her face. I had just gotten in a really bad car accident and I was in a neck brace and I had to drop out of school. I was at this point in college. I had to drop out of basically a semester of school. I was flown to shock trauma. I mean, it was a big deal. It was a serious injury. And before I was completed that recovery process, my dad told me I need to come help him work on the house, which I said, I can't. I'm not allowed to lift over a certain amount of weight. I want to recover from
Yeah.
this. And he said, all right, fine. I'll find other projects for you to do, but you still need to come. I asked my mom to please be there with me because I didn't trust that that was going to be what happened. She did. And when I arrived, he had a refrigerator waiting for me to carry up 3 flights of stairs on a dolly by myself. And I said, I can't do that. I
Yeah.
told you I wasn't allowed to do that. The doctor said I can't do that. And that became a huge screaming match publicly. I wasn't doing any of the screaming. It was just coming in my direction about what a horrible human being I was, how entitled I was, what a bitch I was, right? So it was the first time my mom actually saw that this was a standard conversation, quote unquote, if you want to call it a conversation. And that was really the beginning of the shift of like my mom filed for divorce right after that. So my dad was right this whole time. It was true. But I didn't have to tell her. She saw it for herself firsthand. And slowly but surely, I went through my own journey of having a life separate from my father. I intentionally created a barrier between us. I got into therapy. I started doing my own healing. I created boundaries for what that would look like. And then when I went into the workforce, what I found was that I got so rewarded for the qualities that my dad conditioned me for, right? Like I was
Yeah.
super hardworking. I'm going to be the first one there, the last one to leave. I'm going to go above and beyond all the time. I'm going to do every single thing I can possibly think of, and then a little bit more, because that's how I knew that I was worthy or loved or had any kind of value to who I was as a human. And so I did get rewarded. I got promotions, I got awards, I got accolades, all of the things that people say are the things you want to have on an external perspective. But really what was happening was I was dying inside. I was miserable. I hated myself. It was never good enough. I never felt like it was great to get the awards for like a day. And then it was like, well, what's the next one? It was never enough. And so that's what really led me into a deeper healing journey and going into significantly more ongoing psychodynamic therapy and other modalities of treatment and healing.
Yeah.
And that's when I was clinically diagnosed with a work addiction. And my therapist was able to connect it back to, this is how you were trained. This is how you were domesticated to feel worthiness and love. And I had never really connected those two pieces before, but it made complete sense. And I trust that so many people can relate to this, right? Like,
Yes.
this is such a common experience that we don't talk about, but we have so much between us of you have to do this much in order to be worthy. And that feels like a story that stuck with me. So that's, I feel like the best story I can tell you today of my background, because that brings me to where I am now, which is now I help not just myself, but I work with people in coaching. I have courses and I deliver keynotes specifically on well-being and living in alignment with your values. And that came from recognizing I was living in alignment with my abuser's values, not actually my own. And when I was able to identify that and shed that and set boundaries and step into alignment with my authentic self, that's when I started to feel energy, purpose, aliveness every single day. And nobody outside of me had to validate that. It was coming internally. And it was just an ongoing, beautiful experience of that nourishment coming from within. So now I get to teach people those things for a living, which is fabulous.
It's amazing.
And I'm still on my journey. So I'm still looking forward to, continuing to heal.
100%. Gosh, what an amazing story. But as I'm following you through it, I'm following the energy of just what you're sharing. Um, you know, the number one thing that strikes me, and I've been studying the four pillars is what they sort of gave me in the last week is in the last week or two, is just how to describe the four greatest challenges that humanity is overcoming. And one of them is the economic system, one is the medical system, the government, and religion. And it's fascinating to me because, of course, last night, in the middle of the night, I wake up with this awareness, and now it's making sense of why it started to come in last night, because it was for you. It was for our conversation. It was for understanding. And, the truth is, humans, we don't naturally do bad things. And it's hard. It's hard to accept that when bad things happen. And what they showed me is bad things happen only because these four institutions were created.
Hmm.
And when it was such a cool awareness, because if there was no such thing as those four institutions, humans would still be able to self-govern.
Hmm.
We have lost our capacity to self-govern because we're impacted by all of those things that put stress on us and make us become different people. And then it comes down the line. And it comes down, and we're talking like 10, 15, 20, 30 generations this has been going on for. And this is where, for a lot of people, it kind of goes over their head, in the sense that they're thinking, why me? And this is the hard part to explain sometimes, in the sense of, I mean, I know, there's a lot of us that we get to that point. And I know you have in your journey where you're like, okay, I understand that this happened for a reason. It happened for me.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You can't be at a place where you're helping other humans through it if you haven't gone through the acceptance of that and the awareness. Like,
Completely.
and it's a, process that takes years, and it takes, more courage than anyone will ever understand to go through that internal part. But it's understanding, and they want me to bring awareness to, it's like the paradigm of humanity is broken. Our absolute, like, if you look at energetically the infrastructure that was created for humans to exist within, okay, we were meant to self-govern, which means we all know what's right and wrong, but we make choices, right? And I'm not talking what's right or wrong based on the rules that this person tells us, or this company tells us, or this organization tells us. I'm talking energetically, what's right or wrong. But we make excuses all the time based on something our mind has decided that an experience we need to have. Right? So I'm going to do it because I need to make money.
Right.
I need to do it because if I don't, someone's going to hurt me.
Right.
And so what happens is we end up, this is okay. I've never shared it in this way before. So this is really interesting. We end up training ourselves. And that's really what they're showing me is what you did. You trained yourself to be incredible at execution of tasks that are asked by someone else. So, as much as the mind wants to believe it was him that trained you, it actually wasn't, because he gave you the opportunity and you went, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this so well because this is my goal. And your goal was to avoid punishment of any sort.
Right.
And so, what they really want me to show you, and they want to shine the light on, like they're just showing, it's like a light from heaven basically on your path, saying your strength came from you. It didn't come from defying him. It didn't come from protecting yourself from him. It came from, this is what you wanted, and you did everything you could to make that your reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it's different than coming from the perspective, like underneath, right? Like a deficit where he did this to me. It's recognition that this human chose to take that path, and this is the path I chose to take. And what I loved the most about what you shared is when you had that feeling, because it is a feeling, when you know someone's mood is shifting, you can feel it. And you know there's the potential for disaster just around that corner. And around the corner is literally a breath away. And you knew how to feel into that feeling. And like, that's the core and essence of being human. That's what we were created to do. That's, people always say to me, how do I protect myself? By feeling, because your feelings are never wrong. And what I loved when you were sharing that is it shows your strength and your ability to feel is absolutely incredible. You never lost it once. Even though your emotional side felt battered and it felt taken advantage of and it felt abused, your instincts were never gone. And I want to, like, it's like applaud you in the sense that in the face of adversity, you stuck with feeling. Whereas most people will stop feeling because they want to numb everything. And your willingness to survive, yes, but more, it's like you had this knowing that where you were going was more important than what this person was bringing into your path.
Yeah, I really feel that. And I'll tell you that growing up, I was literally name called by my family members who weren't being abusive. They thought they were being funny. Telling me what a crybaby I was, why I was so sensitive, why I was right. So like everything always had to be so emotional. And like I really was told the message from everybody around me that me being highly emotional, highly sensitive was a terrible quality to have. And now here I am, a few decades later,
It's your sweet
literally, this
spot.
is my business. I teach people how to develop these qualities within themselves. And I now completely own it as my greatest superpower that comes organically and naturally for me because I had such an intense training ground to develop that at a really, really high volume. And that I had the capacity to do that at such a young age. Now I can look back on that and say, what a gift that training ground was for what I get to do now with others. But yeah, it was a long journey to get to that place, because when you really think it's the worst thing about you and everybody around you is reflecting that back to you, you start to shut those pieces of not necessarily numbing, but at least but masking, like
Yeah.
not showing that, because it felt like, well, if I cry now, I'm just gonna be called a crybaby, versus like, this is very emotional and it's appropriate for me to allow myself to have feelings about it.
Right? Yes. It's fascinating when you start to, I mean, I was teased by everyone. Yeah, for the very, very similar experiences. I remember even in school, like I love to sing just out loud with the radio. And you know, friends would make fun of me because I would close my eyes and I would like belt out songs and they would laugh and laugh. And I'm like, can't you feel that? And it was like, no, we're going to make fun of you because you're feeling, you know, and family similar, but I don't need to go into my story, but I just, you know, it's amazing in this day and age that you were able to preserve your ability to feel, because to your point, and that's what your whole work is about, right? That's why you're here, is to help people remember how to feel, you know. And that's massive, because all the people that I work with, everyone's still learning how to feel, you know. And it's it's our greatest superpower as human beings, and it is the hardest one to relearn. And yet, when you relearn it, everything opens up.
Right.
So, where are you now?
Yeah, this is what I'm like the most excited to talk to you about, because I'll tell you, I have recently, in the past year, been hit again with another wave of family trauma, um, and in the form of a lawsuit that is just was just totally crippling and really took me into a very dark and truly like the scariest place I've ever been, in just not wanting to be here anymore, because it felt like, why do I have to relive this all over again? I already did this when I was a kid. Do I really need to go through this again now as an adult? And is this ever not going to be a part of my life? And I'll tell you, now that I can truly say I am through the worst of that, and I feel myself coming back to myself, like I really feel myself again versus just kind of forcing myself to exist, which was the longest period I've ever had in my life as an adult. It has been like that in the past year. And every time now that I have something come up that is related to unworthiness or feeling really stressed or having anxiety, I have a very physical response in my root chakra.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually what I originally came to you for support with. I was having surgery and you supported me with that before I went in. And um, it has just been, every time I have something going on in that part of my body, I know, I know that it's part of this bigger
Yeah.
healing that I have not gotten to, but I don't know how to get to it from a sense of, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm working with a therapist again. You know, I'm going to different healers. I'm doing inner work. I'm reflecting. I live in gratitude. I, you know, have an abundance mindset, all those kinds of things, but it feels really separate from that. It feels like a very unique
Yeah.
response that my body has,
Yeah.
that's debilitating when it comes up.
Okay, so there's lots now. Of course, all the energy's coming in, so it's lovely. Okay, so first I want to thank you for trusting me with this, because this is it's the most intimate part of who you are. And so I just thank you. I'm honored um to be allowed to be in this place, in this part of you. So, and I get to play in here with you. So this is really awesome. Thank you. So ultimately, you know, it's so cool because the way they show me you is, you know, the core of you isn't broken. Okay, it has never been broken. However, it's like an egg, okay, inside, and it's like a golden egg, but the outside is rock hard. You can't break through it to get into that magic spot. And spot but inside of it is, it's like the pure essence of your soul, and it just flows. It's like liquid you. Okay, that's what's in there. So it's the most valuable part of who you are. And okay, so you haven't yet had a reason to go deep enough to extract it yet. Okay.
Mm.
And that's not a bad thing. Okay. It's where it's meant to be, but it's the dry, you already know that I love how you described it. It's like, I just can't seem to get to that awareness that I know is there. And what I love about that is it's your drive. It is literally that pushes you to keep asking questions, to keep going to other people, to see if they can help, to look for answers. And you're not a typical answer asker, and you're not a typical, let me go to this person, let me go to this person. It's okay, so this is what I'm looking for. And you're the person who's going to go to the person who like teaches the people who would most people will go to, if that makes sense. So you're like, I want to go to the top, I want to go to the top, and you continue to go to these people. And it's like, instead of the 10 shamans who learned how to do this one thing, you're like, no, I want to go to the shaman who taught all the shamans. And that's just you. And
Yeah.
so what's happening is your frustration is growing because you're like, I'm going to the top and I still can't get the results and the answers that I'm looking for. And that's the frustrating part. That's the part that's most frustrating, because you're like, I'm doing all the right things and yet the answers aren't flowing. Does that make sense so far?
Totally.
Okay. So what they're saying is, like, how I see this egg, and is beautiful. So it's a golden egg, and inside, so I see your soul, like I see soul energy. It's like a buttery yellow. So it's not like bright golden, but it is soft, right? It's buttery yellow. So I see your soul in there, but it's sleeping. It's curled up peacefully. It has zero worries in the world. And that's where it's meant to be right now. Okay. And you're getting closer, but all of these challenges are happening because they're preparing you for your greatness. Because the moment you crack that egg open, everyone's going to see it, and you're going to be inundated with a need to serve on a whole new level.
Mm.
And that's the part where you're not ready yet, because it's going to be bigger than you. One, for two, there's also going to be people who want to take advantage of you. And that's ultimately why the last few years have been happening. That's why these things are coming now. Get them out of the way, because all the people who are not meant to go to that next level with you, you're seeing them.
Mm.
You're seeing who they are, you're seeing their intentions, because when you go to that next level, like, I have goosebumps from head to toe. You need people that you can trust with who you are.
Mm.
And I know that most people are like, oh, I trust you with who I am. You know what I mean? This is
I
not
do.
that. This is like the essence of who you are, because that, like, when I see your soul, she's completely relaxed and has no cares, in the sense that it's that feeling of weightlessness, but there's no need to protect, because you're protected, you're safe. And when you get to that place where you're ready to share that with the world, it's going to be really, really intimidating to most of the people already,
Mm.
because it's going to freak them out that they can't control you by triggering your old fears. And that's why you've been going through, and they're showing me like 8 or 9 years of this. Okay. So everything that's been happening for the past 8 or 9 years, they're stepping stones. So all of these people, all of these experiences with these people, it's one after another after another. Like, even going through the process of losing your father, right? Like, as much as there was a relief and a freedom, there was still a sadness for what could have been, right? There'll always be that, right? Whenever there's a human in our lives who something happens that it shouldn't happen, we fundamentally recognize that it could have gone another way. We just know that instinctually as humans. So, you've gone through so many layers of emotional trauma as a result of all of these actions that other people have chosen to take in your life and towards you. Now, a lot of them come from jealousy because they want what you have. And it has nothing to do with the physical side, okay? And the physical things you have and the money you have. It's more they want your power. And they want your ability to see the truth, and to not let someone else's anger change who you be. They want that, and they don't know how to get it. So in order to make themselves feel better, they want to try and take what you have to see how far they can push you down until you'll crack. Because if you crack then you'll be jealous like them. Okay. Again, these 4 pillars created this whole system where this is how humans live. And, for your specific journey, it is, well, to be honest, it's a bit of a nightmare. You get up some days and you're like, oh, is this ever going to end? And when you feel like that, MaryBeth, it's about reminding yourself that not only are you here for a reason, but your reason is greater than you know yet. And everything is about recognition that that awareness is coming, and these people are helping you get there. And when you can allow your brain, like, I know you're already look at the positive side, you know how to hold space, you know how to, have an awareness of energy. But what they're showing me is really changing it even more into that place where these are the people who are helping you grow and helping you see more, that it's going to change the dynamics. Because when we have that deficit position of, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening again, we create the space for it to happen again and again and again. So when you allow your space to open and recognize that this person is a gift because they're showing you they don't belong in your inner circle. They're not worthy of the love and the depth of truth and respect and compassion that you're offering. And that person's saying, I don't want to participate at that level. I want to go down here. And you're saying, I can't do that. I can't go backwards. I've done that. And now I'm going to still go forward. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So your journey, they're showing me for the next 6 months in particular, they want you to focus on healing the physical side. Okay. And the reason is it will take the focus off of everybody else, because you need to learn how to allow your focus to be on you wholly and wholeheartedly, because you sprinkle your focus around to everybody, so everybody feels loved and safe and respected. And so the way they're showing me, because, okay, and it's going to be a little bit different because it's so simple, but that's why it's going to be so powerful. Okay. Every day you're being called to do something by yourself for yourself. Okay. It doesn't have to be complicated. Like even just sitting and reading a book that has nothing to do with learning about something or learning to be a better human. No learning. It's literally where your brain can relax and have fun because you need to decompress. Because what's been going on is your brain has been in this, I need to figure it out for so long. That is your go-to, right? Like if you think about it, right? As a child, that's how your brain was trained. I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out. So that is your go-to for everything. Okay. But here's the thing. You have that nailed. You're so good at it. It's unbelievable. What you're not great at yet is allowing yourself to put your health and your awareness as your priority. Okay. And what they're saying is you don't need a ton of people to help you get there. You know, therapy's great, but what happens is your therapist doesn't feel as well as you feel. And so they're going to give you things to think about or to focus on that it's going to trump your feelings. And what your soul is saying is your goal is right now is to come back to your feelings. Does that make sense? So go. I'm not saying don't go. What I'm saying is be there in that moment and allow the sessions to take place, but come at it from a different place of I'm here to explore my own physical healing, because it's very much physical. Your mental doesn't actually need healing. Okay. You're just exhausted because you're physically doing so much for everybody else. Okay. So what happens is it's causing exhaustion. And when it's also not really understanding, but now that you understand the other dynamic, that these people are actually helping you and they're showing you, right? Because you are preparing to step into this greatness, right? You're about 10 years away from the fullness of it, but like 2 years away from the, like, what most people would think is the fullness of it. And then it's going to grow for the 8 years. And then it will just be at this level that, like, when I hear it, it's like angels are singing, like the vibration is so high and no one will be able to get into your sort of inner circle, unless you appoint them, so to speak. But that your appointing always comes from love, compassion, truth, respect, like all, and purity, all of the, fundamental aspects of human existence. So it's not like you're not going to have people around you. It's that all the right people will not only surround you, but they'll be there to lift you up, because in the exchange that you lift them up. Okay. So it's really cool. But right now, your only need and your only focus is on healthy realignment. So, right? Because again, healing is realigning balance. That's all it is, right? It's not, nothing's broken. Nothing's wrong with you. It's just, oh, I'm out of balance. And then we know, oh, you're out of balance because you've been doing for everybody else for so long. It doesn't mean stop doing for everybody else. It means every day you do for you first, and then you do for others, so that your brain gets trained to accept me first. You will never be selfish. So do not worry that that is what's going to happen or what could happen. Okay. Do not worry about what other people have to say as a result, right? Like, remember, you had all that training of everyone's got an opinion about how you feel about you and how you feel about the world and how you feel about what's going on around you. And the reality is, this is your time to learn how to become a powerhouse, really. And the only way you can do that is by being true to you. So it's doing nothing with you for at least an hour every day. Like nothing, something that there's no, you could plan. It's not, but it's like not planning in the sense of, I'm going to do this for an hour, so my brain is busy like that for an hour, right? It's like, whatever it is, it could be a walk. It could be, at the beginning, what they're saying is meditation is not going to be great, only because you're learning how to be with yourself again in a new way. And it will be too intense because you need to be doing something. It's like, when you get the best messages from your soul, it's because you're doing, like, you're doing dishes, having a shower, like you're already doing something where your brain is sort of half busy. That's what they want you to be doing. Because that's how your central nervous system needs to start to decompress, because it's on overload. So if you'd like, I can actually reboot your central nervous system. So I can do I need to decompress it is what I need to do, because the ends are frayed, but the core isn't. It's like the core is kind of in knots. You know, when you when you find like in a drawer and you pull it out and it's a whole bunch of cords and they're all twisted up together and you're like, how did that even happen? That's what they're showing me. And it's not your whole spinal cord. It's like kind of from where your bra strap would be to the waist, like in that one area. And it's all in knots. So what's happening is your central nervous system can't send straight messages to the rest of your body. So it takes a lot more effort for you to send a message from A to B, because you got to go through all of these twists. So if you'd like, I can do that. Would you like that?
Of course I would like. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to do that as we're talking, and they're starting, actually, interestingly, they're starting right in the teeth. Really fascinating, because that's communication, right? So you right away, but oh my gosh, I can feel it. It's like, when someone gets their jaw locked shut. Yeah, that's what you've done. So you've literally, it's like you've built this cage energetically with your central nervous system. Your jaw gets super tight, but it locks. And it's like, I'm just not going to share. I'm not going to share anything about me, how I truly feel. I'm just going to watch, and then I'll open it if I have something to give to someone else and something of value to offer someone else. But I'm not going to open it to offer value to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I actually have TMJ, and that's a whole thing I've had since I was a kid.
Okay. We're going to shift some of that. That's cool. I've same, my childhood was the same with the TMJ. Yep. And it would lock sometimes and it'd be like hard to have a
Very
bite of
scary.
food,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Okay. And they're going now up into the sinuses. So it's amazing, the five senses are so powerful. And it's like, again, you'll smell something that's off. And the only time you would offer yourself wisdom is under the guise of self-preservation. So when you needed to protect yourself rather than offering yourself abundance of any kind. So compassion, respect, purity, love, anything, movement, balance, like any of those things that you would have benefited from. It was like, no, the only thing I need to know is self-preservation. And that was all you would offer you. And they're also working in your heart right now. And so if anyone's listening, you can also, and you feel that you would like to benefit from this energy, I will hold that space so you can have that experience, and you can thank MaryBeth for offering that today. If there's any kind of trauma in your story, I just want to let you know that will alleviate that shift as much as you'll choose to allow it. So, and MaryBeth is really open. So she's really good. And she's feeling your ability to feel is just so enlightened, really, and that's what I love. I love working with you in this way. And yet I can feel that frustration of, I know how to feel, but I can't let the most important stuff that I want the most in right now. Right. Like it's that dynamic, right? You feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's ultimately, so when your central nervous system is in lockdown, right? So yours is basically in its own form of lockdown. So you've got it, it's all the twists and turns. You've got it functioning to the point where it will sustain your life, but it won't support abundance.
Mm.
So information can only come in like pinprick holes, right? If you think about energy as flowing like Niagara Falls, you've let like a pinprick in. So it's just enough to sustain existence. It's not going to allow for abundance, because in your experience, abundance hurts. When lots of anything comes in, it's going to hurt. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the ears now. It's like popping, and there's a lot of pressure on both sides. And it's interesting because they're showing me under the chin at the same time as on the top of your mouth. So all, oh wow. Okay. And then on the top of the head. So there's a clamp going around the entire. Okay. So what that is your ideas and ideals about what you're capable and what's possible for you in the world. And so there's a lot of challenges around being a girl. And what I mean by that is, as much as you know you can do anything and you're extremely capable, there is a huge part of you that wants freedom to be yourself in spite of being seen, instead of being seen, as a woman. You want to be seen as a person, as a human who has the capacity to create magnificent change. And you're not always recognized in that scope. It's oftentimes you're a woman. And it's so cool because it's not woman from a female standpoint of, gender politics. It's woman from the standpoint of physical limitations rather than energetic existence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's bigger. And your challenge is always like when you're working with these great leaders, these great, masters of energy, and they're telling you something and you're like, yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. And I'm also getting 10 other messages that are even more. And you try and communicate that. And it's kind of like, it's almost like they're patting you on the head and they're like, yeah, I know what you mean. But it's not, they're not giving you the opportunity to go beyond and have that energetic experience where you can lift right out of yourself. This is how I keep seeing it. Okay. So, and that's, it's that rebirth you're craving, right? Because it's literally you in the egg, but it's also not your time. So it is remembering that as much as it looks like them sometimes coddling, sometimes what's the word they're looking for? It's like not patronizing, but like, anyways, it's like this, it's going to be okay, MaryBeth, it's going to be okay. And you're like, I know it's going to be okay, but I need more answers. I need more definition. I need more depth, right? It's that fullness that it's coming. And no one is going to be able to walk you through that journey. It's about allowing yourself, instead of going to people for help and awareness and, like them working on you, you need to create a space where you can share what you're feeling, because that's how it's going to come out. It's not going to come out because someone holds space for you and does something for you. Does that make sense?
Totally.
This is
I
it.
I have so much that is tracked. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Because that's where you are. You're in this place that you're learning how to hold that space for you. When you nail it, you're going to know, because you're going to crack wide open. So it's not about running around and taking a whole bunch of courses and learning from a whole bunch of people.
That's what I've been doing. What do you mean?
Sorry, my dogs just went flying through the room barking. Someone wants to come to the door. I apologize. Um, it's not about taking any courses anymore. It's literally about creating your own sacred space and letting it be whatever it needs to be. That's the key. That's what they're showing me, right? So, right now, as it's, like I can feel the energy coming down, and it's not so much from it's the second chakra. So it's there because it's not the root that's having the issue. It's the second, right? Second is your relationship, right? It's our relationship. So that's all of our digestive, all of our reproductive, no, digestive organs. So all of that is your relationships in the world to everything, your relationship to your higher calling, your relationship to who you are and who you are now. And so that's where like the energy is going from there right down to your legs, because you have no issues with your connection to your soul and your ability to feel. Zero.
Yeah.
You're rock solid there. Your challenge is allowing who you be to spread out into the world, and because you're always worried, is it going to be too much over here? Are these people going to get it? Are they going to accept it? Are they going to, not right? Because your whole experience has been you're too much for everybody. How you feel is too much, whether it's too emotional, too whatever, assertive, too all two alls, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So you're creating a space where you're going to be able to explore you. And in order to do that, you need to take the first 6 months to create the space. And that's why they're saying keep it really simple. It's doing something for you every day. Something that up until today would seem frivolous. And
Mm.
and that's the joy of it. It's you're not frivolous. You doing something for you is valuable. It's sacred. It's not frivolous. You going and having coffee, if you drink coffee, in a space by yourself, that's not frivolous. It's part of, sorry, it's my dogs in the background if you can hear them. I
I can't hear
apologize.
them, but
Oh, that's so
we're
good.
good.
um, but that's your whole brain has been trained to think you doing things for you is frivolous, and you're untraining that. And the only way you can untrain it is by going out and doing it and going through the discomfort of it and honoring it. And the best part is you're going to meet the right people when you start doing that. You're going to meet the best people along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I
That's what,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say that's literally what you're describing is what I've been doing since November. So November of 2023, I just got to a place where I was like, why do I keep trying so hard? What if instead of trying to figure everything out and fix everything and,
Yep.
all that, what if instead I just prioritize my well-being as the only measure of success? And so I have been going to a studio that has like Reiki and sound baths and breath work and the my friend is the owner of the studio. She's like, we've never had somebody consistently come as frequently as you do because I'm going to like 5 classes a week. And
Yep.
that's something I never would have prioritized in the past. It's just that it's I said I cannot keep doing all of this stuff. I have to start receiving and being in a space of being open to receiving and investing in receiving. And so that's what I've been doing. And it's like completely changed my life for the better, choosing to do that. So as you're describing this, I'm like, oh, this is what I've been doing. And I look forward to continue to do. I live between Baltimore City where I am right now and a ranch in Idaho. It's a 100-acre ranch. That's like a 200 square foot tiny home, totally off the grid. So I'll be going there in May and I won't be back until November. So that
Brilliant.
also
I got
feels like
goosebumps.
seriously putting myself
Yeah.
first, right? Because that's what I want. That's like, it doesn't make any sense, quote unquote, from like business owner perspective or like having everything figured out of how I'm going to do that or live there. But it is the thing that has just been a deep calling of you cannot wait until you're retired. Like this
No.
has to happen
Yeah.
now. There is no such thing as putting this off anymore. There's not another option. And the difference though was that like even when we got our tiny home, we got it last year, we're going into our second year now of just having it. It like all these awful things happen. Like this huge fire went like the largest wildfire ever in existence of our ranch. Like there were literally fire trucks stationed on our property because they were sure it was going to all burn down. That happened 3 days after our house was delivered.
Oh
So it was
gosh.
like all of these experiences of like, I thought I was doing this thing to take care of myself. And now it actually is this thing that's blowing up in my face. Um, and that has since, obviously thankfully it has not taken the whole property down or anything like that. We were safe from that, but it just continued to, so then it didn't feel like I was taking care of myself because even though I was where I wanted to
You were
be, I was so
stressed.
stressed.
Yeah.
And it's a family property. There's like family legacy and there's a lot of trauma associated to the property in certain ways. And so it's just been a very interesting journey of figuring out what that looks like for me in here in Baltimore. And then what is that going to look like for me when I go out west? I am
Right.
turning 40 this year and I just got accepted into a 24-day program where I'm going to be going to Montana to gentle wild Mustangs for a month.
That's amazing. Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
so good. Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
so
exciting.
that feels like putting myself
Yeah.
first, right? Because it didn't make any sense. I was talking to my husband, I'm like, well, how can I step away from the business for a month? And how can I, not see my clients for a month? And how can I, do this? And is this responsible to make this kind of financial investment right now? And thankfully, it got to a place where I was like, no, this is what my soul is calling me to do. This is like a
That's
part of what's
amazing.
important. So it's
Right.
happening. It's beginning that process in the beginning phases.
And it's important because here's the thing, like we have to charge fully in order to be able to create space for others. You can't create space on a battery that's only half full. It's impossible. And what happens is what you're creating then becomes a fraction of who you are and what you're capable of. Sorry, she's a rescue and she needs a little bit of attention at the moment. So I'm just gonna pet her. My son just left the house, hence the barking. So now she's like, okay, well, he's gone. I need your attention now. So I apologize for the disruption, but it's life. So ultimately, so I love that you're doing things for you. And a little bit of what they were saying is when they were saying like not doing workshops, not doing things where you're being taught to focus. So as much as I love the idea of the yoga classes and all of those things, balance it out with time where there is no rules. And what I mean by, because when I go into it, like when you go into a yoga class, you're still following along, right? Like, yes, it's good. You're not the one who's driving it, but you're still following what someone else wants you to do and how they want you to achieve that particular feeling that they've felt in the room is what the room needs, right? Like yoga is phenomenal, but you're at this place where you're needing to learn how to, it's like set your own thermostat, you know? And that's the part that's awkward. It's still awkward, which is why, like going with the wild Mustangs is awesome, but you're still going to learn how to do that. You're
Right.
you're always learning, right? You can see what I mean. Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's funny because your go-to downtime is still taking classes in learning.
Yep. Yep.
And what they're saying is, Mary Beth, it's okay to not be doing. It's
Ooh.
okay. Yeah.
My whole brain just started to
Yeah.
I don't know what the word is. It just was like pulsing, like the brain. I felt it inside my head when you just
It's
said that.
changing so because we started decompressing the central nervous system, now when you hear the information, because it's what I said before, but it wasn't going in as well. Now we've created more space for it to go in, and it's hitting. And your brain is literally decompressing.
Mm,
It's decompressing from performing, but it's mostly the need to perform, because even when you go to take a class, you're still performing,
right.
right? Even though you're going as a student, your student is still performing. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
So it's allowing yourself to build that muscle of getting comfortable following your own lead. You know, you're really good at helping others see inside themselves. You're really good at helping them feel, but you're on when you do that. And then when you're not on, right? And it's really cool because, you know, your relationship with your husband is, it's very dynamic. Like he's like lighthearted, but he has that balance, right? Like the serious side and the lighthearted. And what they're saying is like, follow his lighthearted, like
Mm-hmm.
his silliness, which seems silly. Okay. Like
Yeah,
sometimes you're
very
like, are you
accurate.
kidding me right now? Like, like, and it's almost like, your brain is like, this is too much. And what they're saying is go play with that side of your husband, and go play with him,
Mm,
because that's why you married him. That's why, because he brings balance to you, and you bring balance to his silly side. But right now, you don't need to bring his silly down. His silly needs to lift your silly up. If does that make sense? Yes.
yeah, I don't know if you can see, I'm like getting teary-eyed
Yeah.
just
He's
thinking about that. It's true. And he doesn't always show his silly, like I'm one of the few people who get to see it. And it's a gift when I get to see it. And now he's just starting, like yesterday, we were running a workshop and he decided that the way that people were going to go into breakout rooms was they were going to make an animal noise. And he started by roaring as loud as he could.
I love it.
And I was just like, oh my God. It like everyone was just dying laughing.
Yep.
And I loved it. It was so great. It was never something that I would have prompted him to do.
Right. Yes. And that's the whole point, is letting go of what your brain needs to think and how it needs to be on all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's that constant performance, even when you're by yourself, right? That's that guilt of, I should be still doing this and I should be still doing that. But that comes from that performance training, right? Keep your head down and go for the goal, go for the goal, go for the goal. And the reality is you'll reach your goal faster if you can learn how to relax into being who you are, into your own space, because what's going to happen is your vibration's going to go up, and your capacity to see and feel is going to grow. And that's what you're cultivating,
Yeah.
because all of those people who gave you those opinions of who they thought you were being, or who they thought you needed to be, they created that circle, right? Where you've decided, I'm going to take it on and I'm going to perform within my circle. And what the universe is saying is, there there is no more circle, because everybody needs to see you. And that's intimidating for you. You're like, yeah, okay, but I want to do it this way. And the universe and your soul is like, no, but that's not what you're meant to do. You have to rise above all of it, in spite of the fears, in spite of um, the nerves, and all the reasons that your brain is saying, but I can't do that. I'm not meant to do that. And your soul is like, yep, you are. We're going to nudge you out a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. So ultimately, the next 6 months, deep, deep dive into just being with yourself,
Mm.
comfortable. So 1 hour, that's it. 1 hour every day, without a class. Do the yoga classes too. That's fine. But do something where no one's leading you through anything. No one's telling you how to feel. No, nothing. And I
Okay.
keep seeing you. It's really cool. It's almost like, I don't know if it's a coffee shop or something, but it's like, it's a room and you're drinking tea and there's like these really cool pillows on the floor and there's like scarves from the wall. The lighting's kind of dimish, but and then there's a bright window and then there's this one woman and she has long dreadlocks. It's really cool. But it's like you're going to find your people when you start to decompress. Yeah. Because you're going to need a super strong circle going forward. Yeah. Because it won't be just, you know, yeah, it won't be just you and your husband because he's awesome, but he also has his higher calling and together you've got some awesome stuff. But you also need um some spice. It's like some feminine spice kind of thing, right? Like you need to be able to have that space where you can share all of who you are and no one's going to come back with judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least
And
not bracing myself for impact for the judgment, right? Like,
yeah. And the thing is you're bracing because you're still feeling it.
right.
And you won't brace when it's free because you feel your ability to feel like here's the thing, right? Energy never lies. So people can lie all the time. They're like, oh, it's okay. I'm listening to you. I'm totally open. And you tell them something about you and they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And the energy just goes, right? It closes, like you can feel it instantaneously. So the more you let yourself be you, it's like not becoming quite a wild horse because a wild horse doesn't let anyone touch them kind of thing, right? Like it's more about it's taming the fear side and letting the wild side still grow,
Mm,
right? So
I
it's
get that. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's really what you want to keep doing because then the right people will come in, right? Because right now, if when you're protecting yourself from all of those opinions, you're still building your fear side. And you don't you now is the time to no longer build your foundation. There can't be any fear in your foundation. So you need to get rid of it. And those are all of the things that are going to happen simply because all you're going to do is for an hour every day, you're going to follow your instincts. That's it. And it's super cool. Like it's so simple, right? It's when we overcomplicate it. We're like, I need to do this and go see this person. Nope. You need to go and hang out with MaryBeth. And that's it. That's it. Whether it's a
Got it.
bubble bath, whether it's going to a coffee shop, whether it's going to a bookstore, going for a walk outside in nature. It doesn't matter go for a drive, even. None of those are bad things, but they're MaryBeth led. Everyone. They don't have a purpose. They are in the moment and they're MaryBeth led.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
So good.
excited.
I'm
And
so
to
excited.
notice, I'm sure you don't remember this, but you were the first person to ever tell me I was a perfectionist, and I denied it the whole time in my first session with you. You were like, "You're a perfectionist and you're like recovering from those tendencies." I'm like, "I'm not a perfectionist."
And then it got in.
Right? Right? And so I've got a lot of I mean, it was a huge awareness for me because I never identify that way. And even how you just said, like, I've really classified my self-care recently as this like true just receiving, but it's like, yeah, I'm going to learn something for 24 days. It's going to be grueling to a certain extent, right? Like
You're going to be
that's
on and
different.
performing for 24
Yeah,
days.
yeah, right. So it's just it's a really powerful layer and lens that I haven't looked through, and I really appreciate that, and to also appreciate the sensations I've been feeling in my body since you started doing that
Awesome. So
clearing as well.
48 hours, it's going to continue before. And sorry, I'm going to have a sip because now there's something in my throat. So 48 hours, the cleansing is going to continue. So lots of water. Um, if you need to have caffeine tomorrow, like just one, um, that
I
you
don't
don't, I
use
love
caffeine.
that. That's brilliant. Um, yeah. The lightest food that you can have, as much fruit in the next 48 hours as possible, because it's going to help all that stuff. And when your pee is probably going to be a bit stinky, and it's going to be like almost a brown color, not yellow even. It's going to be brown. And that's fear coming out, right? That fear of
Mm.
being alone, that fear of needing to perform. And it's stinky and brown. So there's nothing going wrong. That is literally your kidneys clearing out fear, because that's where we hold it.
Mm.
So yeah, so enjoy that. And I hope you'll come back and see us again and let us know how it's going, because
Oh
this
my
has just been
gosh,
so much
please.
fun.
If there's an invitation, I'll be back every week.
I love that. That's awesome. Yay.
But yeah,
Thank you.
I'll definitely stay in touch and would be happy to come back and share more maybe in 6 months,
Yes,
what
that would
has
be
changed and shifted as
amazing.
a result of being open to this awareness. So thank you so much, Michelle. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And for those who are looking to enhance their ability to feel, how can they get a hold of you? How can they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah. Well, I'm really active on LinkedIn, MaryBeth Hyland, Hyland. And another great way to learn more about connecting more deeply with yourself and your feelings is what I do for a living. It's through your values. And so we have a wonderful free quiz if anyone listening is interested. It's just corevaluesquiz.com. It's a great way to get started to understanding yourself more authentically.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here. And again, thank you for trusting me with this amazing part of your journey. I am honored.
Well, likewise, I am so honored to be a part of this with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to learn more, head on over to michellevickers.com. Join our mailing list to receive new episodes right to your inbox, or apply to be a guest on the show. If this episode made you think of someone while you were listening, forward the link onto that person with a little note about why it made you think of them, because the greatest gift you can give another human is to see the beauty and purity of who they truly are. Until next time, stay curious.